Get ready for a deep dive into kindness, folks, because today we're looking at Heartbeat, celebrating human connection.
It's a collection of stories, really,
Wow.
that showcase just how powerful these small gestures can be.
Yeah, and like the ripple effect
The ripple effects.
that they create.
Exactly. It's amazing.
And it really highlights this idea that, even the smallest act of kindness can have a profound impact on individuals and communities.
And I think one thing that Heartbeat does really well is that it has such a variety of stories.
Yeah.
We have stories of like everyday heroes, like the young man who helped the elderly woman cross the street.
Right.
But then we also have these huge community efforts.
Yes.
Like a marathon where runners carry messages of hope from hospitalized children.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's something in here for everyone. Let's actually start with the story about the young man and the elderly woman.
Okay.
Because I think it's such a beautiful illustration of just seeing and acknowledging someone in need.
Imagine you're this elderly woman and you're trying to navigate a busy city.
Oh, I can imagine.
It's overwhelming.
It can be very isolating,
Oh.
especially in a fast-paced environment where everybody's kind of rushing.
Yeah.
And they're so focused on their own destination.
You feel invisible.
You do.
And then this young man steps in.
Mm.
He doesn't just help her cross the street. He walks with her. He makes sure she gets to where she needs to go.
He engages in conversation.
Yes. It just shows that even that small act of kindness can really make someone's day
Absolutely.
and make them feel seen.
Yeah. It's a reminder that sometimes the most meaningful gestures are the ones that require us to just be present with another person.
I love that.
To kind of slow down, take a moment, pay attention, and recognize the humanity.
It's like he's saying, I see you.
Yes.
You matter.
And you matter.
And I think that can be incredibly powerful.
Especially for someone who might be feeling vulnerable.
Yeah.
Or alone.
Exactly. Now, I want to talk about Ms. Thompson.
Oh, Miss Thompson.
The librarian.
Such a great story.
Because this woman, she saw a need, and she responded with such grace and compassion.
She did.
So she notices this young boy, and his shoes are literally falling apart.
Oh, gosh.
And instead of making a fuss about it, she quietly figures out a way to get him a new pair.
So discreet.
Right.
I mean, that's just it.
Yeah.
It's discreet generosity at its finest.
It is. And, for a child, especially at that age, something as simple as a pair of shoes
Absolutely.
can have a huge impact on their self-esteem,
Yes.
their sense of belonging.
Right. And you think about a child feeling ashamed or embarrassed about something like that.
And she completely avoided that.
She did. She handled it so subtly.
She did.
So
Yeah, and it makes you think about all the unsung heroes out there, like Ms. Thompson, who are just quietly making a difference
every day
in their community.
So let's shift gears a little bit. Okay.
Because now I want to talk about Chef Marco.
Oh, Chef Marco, yes.
And Coach Henderson.
Coach Henderson, yeah.
Because they both kind of represent this idea that people in positions of influence can really use their platform to create positive change.
That's right.
So Chef Marco, he uses his restaurant to feed people who are struggling with food insecurity.
Yes, it's more than just providing food.
Exactly.
He's offering a space of warmth and dignity for those who maybe feel marginalized.
And belonging. Like we were saying with the elderly woman. It's like, I see you.
Yeah.
You matter.
And you belong here.
And you belong here.
In this space.
And then you have Coach Henderson, who makes sure every child on his team has a uniform, regardless of if they can afford it or not.
Regardless of their background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really about creating this environment of inclusivity and equality.
It sends such a powerful message that every child deserves to feel like they belong.
Exactly. And I think, talking about community, let's talk about Emma and James.
Oh, Emma and James.
And Mrs. Alvarez.
Mrs. Alvarez, right.
Because they really highlight the power of community.
Yes.
So imagine you're Emma and James. You're struggling to make ends meet.
Yeah.
You're about to have to cancel your dream wedding.
Right.
And then your entire community.
The whole community.
Comes together.
At rallies.
And they make it happen.
Offers support, resources.
Outpouring of love.
Yeah.
It's like a modern day fairy tale.
It really is.
And it shows that human need for connection.
Yes.
Belonging.
Absolutely.
Those moments of shared joy.
Yes.
They really make life worth living. And then you have Mrs. Alvarez.
Yeah.
Who, without hesitation, opened her home to children.
during a fire.
Yeah.
What a story.
It's that spontaneous generosity
It is.
and that trust
The trust.
that you find in these close-knit communities.
Yes, she didn't think twice.
And it just shows you that in times of crisis, people really come together.
That instinctual care and compassion.
Yes. Okay. I want to talk about Michael the busker.
Oh, the busker.
And Laura.
Okay.
Because they both showcase how personal passions can become acts of service.
Mm-hmm.
So Michael, he uses music to raise money for homeless shelters.
Right.
And Laura turned her love of reading into a community initiative for accessible literature.
So inspiring.
Right. It's like they took something they loved
and
they made it.
They found a way to make a difference.
Yeah. So Michael's music, it's not just entertainment.
Right.
It's a vehicle for social change.
Absolutely.
And then Laura sparked a movement to make literature more accessible.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the Anonymous Gardener.
Oh, yes, the Anonymous Gardener.
And the marathon.
With the messages
from
the kids.
Because they're both about these small acts of kindness that create these huge ripple effects.
That's right.
So the Anonymous Gardener transforms neglected spaces into vegetable gardens. Not only is this person beautifying the city, they're addressing this issue of access to fresh food.
A critical social issue.
Right.
It's quiet activism at its best.
It is.
And I love the mystery of it. The fact that it's anonymous makes it even more intriguing.
Yeah. And then we have the marathon.
Yes.
Where the runners carry messages of hope.
From hospitalized children.
Yes.
So powerful.
It's giving voice to those who are often unheard.
Mm-hmm.
It's about collective action, fueled by compassion and empathy.
Yeah, and that celebrity reading those messages at the finish line, it's like their voices are being amplified.
Yes. It's such a powerful image.
It is.
You know, I have to say, as we've been talking about these stories, I'm feeling really inspired.
Me too.
It just shows you that there's so much goodness,
Yeah.
compassion, and love in the world.
It's a beautiful thing to witness.
It really is. We'll be back in a moment to talk about the impact of all of this kindness.
Sounds good. Welcome back to our deep dive into Heartbeat. You know, we've been talking about these inspiring stories, and I think it's really important to reflect on the impact that these actions have.
What do you think?
You know, not just on individuals, but on society as a whole.
Yeah, I'm really curious about that. Because we see these acts of kindness on this individual level.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the bigger picture? Like, how do they affect families, communities, society?
Well, one of the things that strikes me is this idea of social capital.
Okay, what's that?
Think of it like the glue that holds a community together.
Okay.
It's the trust, the relationships.
A sense of belonging.
Your shared values.
Okay, I'm starting to get it.
And these acts of kindness contribute to building that.
So when that young man helped the elderly woman.
Exactly.
He wasn't just helping her.
He was contributing to this culture of care in his city.
And when Chef Marco opens his restaurant to feed those who are struggling, he's fostering that sense of community.
He is.
It's like each act of kindness is a thread, and then together they create this tapestry.
That's a great way to put it.
Of human connection.
Yes.
And it's something we can all be a part of.
Absolutely. Every act of kindness matters.
But what about the impact on the giver?
Oh, that's interesting, too.
Like, what does it do for them?
Well, studies show that being kind actually makes us feel good.
Oh, really?
It releases endorphins.
Like a helper's high.
Exactly. It's like a natural high.
So it's good for everyone involved.
It is.
It's amazing.
But it's also important to remember that it's not always easy.
Yeah, that's true.
It requires empathy.
Yeah.
Courage.
Like Coach Henderson, right?
Yes. He could have ignored the fact that some kids couldn't afford uniforms.
Yeah, it would have been easier.
It would have.
But he chose to do something.
He did.
He made a difference.
Right.
And then you think about Miss Thompson and the shoes.
Such a quiet act of kindness.
Yeah.
But so powerful.
And it wasn't flashy or anything.
It wasn't.
It was just about seeing a need and meeting it.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's about a whole community coming together.
Yeah.
Like with Emma and James.
Right.
It just warms my heart to see that.
It's about that human need to connect.
Yeah.
To belong.
And I love that we're seeing these examples of personal passions turning into acts of service.
Yeah.
Like Michael and Laura.
It's like finding those meaningful ways to give back.
Yeah, exactly.
And it doesn't always have to be about direct service.
Right, like the Anonymous Gardener?
Yes. It's about beautifying the city.
Making a statement.
And addressing this issue of access to food.
You mentioned the science of kindness before.
I did.
Tell me more about that.
Well, it turns out that kindness is actually good for us,
Okay.
physically and mentally.
Really?
It reduces stress and anxiety.
That's great to know.
It's true. It releases oxytocin, the love hormone.
Which calms us down.
Exactly. And it even boosts our immune system.
Wow, kindness really is amazing.
It is.
So we've been talking about all these wonderful things,
We have.
but there's one more thing I want to touch on.
What's that?
Kindness is contagious.
It really is.
When we see it, we want to do it too.
It inspires us to pay it forward.
So it creates this ripple effect
It does.
of love and compassion.
A chain reaction of goodness.
Exactly. We'll be right back to talk even more about this.
Looking forward to it.
We're back. And, after hearing all these stories from Heartbeat, I can't help but feel this overwhelming sense of hope.
Me too. It reminds us that even in a world that feels so divided,
Yeah.
there's still so much goodness out there.
But it makes me wonder, are we inherently kind?
That's a tough one,
Yeah.
It's a question that's been debated for centuries.
Right.
Some people say that we're wired for self-preservation.
So basically, we're kind of selfish by nature.
Well, it's not that simple.
Okay.
Others argue that we're also hardwired for empathy,
Okay.
cooperation, connection.
Because that's how we survive as a species.
Right. And I think it's not about one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
We're complex.
Yeah.
We're capable of both selfishness and kindness.
So it comes down to choices.
It does.
We can choose to be kind.
Absolutely. And the more we choose kindness,
Yeah.
the more we reinforce those pathways in our brains.
So we're actually training our brains to be kinder.
In a way, yes.
Wow. And these Heartbeat stories,
Yeah,
they give us so many examples
they do.
of what that looks like in the real world.
They remind us that kindness isn't always about these huge gestures.
Right.
It's about those everyday moments,
The little things.
the small acts of care.
Yeah. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Heartbeat, I have a question for our listeners.
Okay.
What small act of kindness will you inspire today?
It could be a smile,
Yeah.
holding a door for someone,
Listening to a friend.
just a simple gesture.
And remember, kindness is contagious.
It is.
So you might just inspire someone else.
And that's how we create a more compassionate world.
Exactly. Thank you for joining us on this journey into Heartbeat.
It's been a pleasure.
Keep those heartbeats of kindness going strong, everyone.